Tom had worked as a park ranger for 8 years and he liked the quiet parts of the job the most. He liked mornings when the sun came up slowly over the hills and the air smelled like pine and clean soil. He liked hearing birds before he saw them. He liked knowing that most days would be normal and steady. That morning started normal too. Tom drove the old ranger truck along the dirt road, stopped near the small wooden gate, and signed his name on the patrol sheet. He checked his radio, his water bottle, and his small notebook. Then he walked into the North Valley, a place most visitors never reached because it was far from the main trails. The wind was cool and soft. The sky was light blue and clean. Tom followed the path that ran beside a shallow stream. He watched for signs of trouble like broken fences, smoke, lost hikers, or animals that looked sick. He also watched for small things like a new hole near the path or a fallen tree that might block the way. After an hour, Tom noticed something strange on the ground. At first he thought it was a patch of white flowers or a thin layer of frost. But it was not cold enough for frost, and the white patches were too thick for flowers. He walked closer and saw that it was wool. It was sheep wool. Real wool, soft and tangled, spread across the grass. Tom crouched down and lifted a handful. It felt clean, not dirty like old trash. It did not smell bad. It smelled like warm sun and dry grass. That made it even more confusing because if this wool came from a problem, it should have looked messy. Tom looked around. He expected to see a few wild sheep nearby, maybe shedding their winter coat on bushes. But he saw none. The valley was quiet. Only the stream moved, and the wind brushed through the trees. Tom stood up and followed the white trail. The wool was everywhere now. It clung to small branches like cotton. It filled cracks between rocks. It gathered in soft piles behind fallen logs, as if the wind had pushed it and tucked it away. He kept walking, and the trail led him toward the hill ridge that cut across the valley. As Tom climbed, the wool became thicker. It looked like someone had dumped giant bags of it. His boots pressed into it and left deep marks, like steps in fresh snow. When he reached the top of the ridge, Tom stopped and stared. Below him was a wide flat area of land, and it was covered in wool as far as he could see. The valley floor looked like a white blanket had been pulled over it. In some places, the wool rose in small hills. In other places, it formed long lines, like waves frozen in place. Tom felt his mouth go dry. He was a ranger, not someone who panicked easily, but this was too big. It was not a small strange event. It was huge. He took out his phone and started taking pictures. He filmed a slow video too, turning in a full circle so the scale could be understood. Then he wrote in his notebook, North Valley Ridge, large wool field, unknown source, check for animals and human activity. Tom tried to think of a simple reason. Wild sheep sometimes rubbed against trees and rocks to remove loose wool. But that could not create this. No group of sheep could shed this much in one place in a short time. Unless something forced them together. Unless something happened that made them move in a tight group and leave wool behind as they passed. But even that felt too small. He started walking down carefully, testing each step because wool could hide holes and loose stones. He moved slowly and listened. He wanted to hear any animals, any people, any machines, any sign of a camp. There were no voices. When Tom reached the valley floor, he saw tracks. At first he thought they were deer tracks, but then he saw the split shape clearly. Sheep tracks. Many of them. Thousands. The ground under the wool was pressed down hard as if a huge group had walked here again and again. Tom followed the tracks and found something else. He saw marks that looked like wheel lines, very faint, like a vehicle had passed but not deeply. That was important because vehicles were not allowed here. This part of the park was protected. Only ranger trucks could enter, and even then, only on certain paths. Tom's mind began building a list of possibilities. One possibility was illegal dumping. Another was a strange accident with a wool transport truck. Another was something natural that pushed the sheep into one place. But none felt right because the wool was spread so evenly across a huge area, like it had been carried by wind and placed gently. He kept walking until he found the stream again, but now it was not clear water. The stream had wool floating in it. Some wool was stuck against stones, forming small dams. The water was still flowing, but slower in places. Tom felt a sharp worry. If the wool blocked the stream too much, it could change the water path. It could flood some areas and dry others. It could affect plants and animals. Even if wool was natural, this amount in the wrong place could cause serious problems. Tom turned on his radio. "This is Ranger Tom at North Valley Ridge. I found a large amount of sheep wool covering the valley floor. It looks like an extreme event. I am sending location and photos now. I need support for investigation and cleanup planning." The radio crackled, then a voice replied. It was Lena, the duty officer. "Tom, say again. Did you say large amount?" Tom looked around again, as if the land might change while he spoke. "Yes. Large. The valley looks covered. Like snow. It could be many tons. I do not see animals or people yet. I see sheep tracks and faint wheel marks." Lena went quiet for a moment, then spoke carefully. "Stay safe. Do not go alone into unknown areas. Mark your route. We are calling the head office. Keep your line open." Tom said okay and took a deep breath. He knew that sometimes strange discoveries could lead to danger, not only from nature but from people who did not want to be found. If this was illegal dumping, someone might return. If this was connected to theft or a hidden operation, he needed to be careful. He chose a higher path along the edge of the valley where he could see more. He scanned the horizon. Then he saw something that made him stop. Far away, near the tree line, there was a shape that did not belong. It was a small building, or maybe a shed, made of metal sheets. It was not in the park maps. Tom knew the map well. This structure should not exist. He walked toward it slowly, keeping distance and staying in open ground. As he got closer, he saw that the shed had a door that hung slightly open. Wool was piled around it like a drift. The door was scratched, and there were fresh marks in the soil near it. Tom did not touch the door. He stood a few steps back and listened. Inside, he heard a soft sound. It was not a voice. It was not a machine. It was a quiet repeated movement, like something shifting its weight. Tom's heart beat harder. He spoke into the radio again, low and steady. "Lena, I found a structure near the tree line. It is not on the map. The door is open. I hear movement inside. I am staying outside and not entering." Lena answered quickly. "Do not enter. Wait for backup. Keep eyes on it from a safe distance." Tom agreed, but he could not stop staring at the open door. The air near the shed smelled slightly different. It smelled like wool, but also like smoke and metal, like someone had been working here. A gust of wind blew, and the wool moved across the ground like a slow white wave. For a moment, the valley looked alive. Tom stayed still, watching. Then a shadow shifted inside the shed, and something stepped closer to the doorway. Tom held his breath because he knew whatever came out might finally explain how millions of tons of wool ended up in the park, and why it looked so clean and carefully spread across the land. Tom stayed where he was and did not move closer to the shed. He stood behind a large rock and kept his eyes on the open door. The wind pushed the wool across the ground again, and it brushed softly against his boots. The sound inside the shed continued, slow and steady. After a long moment, a man stepped out. The man was tall and thin, with gray hair and a brown jacket covered in wool fibers. His hands were rough and red from work. He looked tired, but not afraid. He looked around the valley like someone checking on something important. Tom raised his hand slightly to show he was there. He did not shout. He did not run. He wanted to stay calm. The man froze when he saw Tom. Both of them stood still for a few seconds. The valley was silent except for the wind and the stream. Then the man spoke first. "I did not think anyone would come today." His voice was low and steady. Tom replied slowly, "I am Ranger Tom. This land is protected. Can you tell me why you are here? The man nodded and took a step back from the door, keeping his hands where Tom could see them. My name is Ben. I am not here to cause harm. I know this looks bad. Tom noticed that Ben did not try to run. That mattered. Tom spoke again. There is wool covering the entire valley. I need to understand how it got here. Ben looked down at the wool near his boots. He pressed his foot into it like someone testing the ground. It is not waste, he said. It is the result of a rescue. Tom frowned slightly. A rescue. Ben looked back up. Yes. A large one. Ben stepped away from the shed and walked a few meters forward. Tom stayed alert but allowed the distance to close a little. Ben pointed toward the hills on the far side of the valley. Last winter was harsh. Too harsh. The wild sheep up there were trapped by heavy snow. They could not move. They could not find food. Many would have been lost. Tom listened closely. Ben continued. I grew up near this park. My family raised sheep long ago. I learned how they behave. When I heard reports of heavy losses, I came to check. I found hundreds of sheep stuck together in a narrow pass. Their wool was soaked, frozen, and heavy. They could not walk. Tom slowly understood where this was going. I called for help, Ben said. No one came. The roads were closed. The weather was bad. So I did what I could. Ben pointed at the shed. I built that shelter quickly. I used old metal sheets. Inside, I set up warm lamps and dry ground. I led the sheep here in groups. I cut their wool to save them from the cold weight. Tom looked at the valley again. The picture began to change in his mind. You sheared them, Tom said. Ben nodded. Yes. Thousands of them. Over many days. I did not have machines. I used simple tools. The wool piled up faster than I expected. Tom felt a mix of surprise and concern. Why did you leave the wool here? Ben gave a small sad smile. I had nowhere to take it. Trucks could not reach this place in winter. I thought I would return later to remove it. But spring came fast. The snow melted. The sheep moved back to the hills. The wool stayed. Tom thought of the clean smell of the wool and how it was not dirty or damaged. How many sheep did you save? Tom asked. Ben looked toward the hills again. I stopped counting after 10,000. Tom exhaled slowly. That number explained everything. The tracks. The amount. The spread. Ben continued speaking. I know I broke rules. I know I should have waited. But waiting would have meant losing them. I could not stand by and do nothing. Tom believed him. The story fit too well. The details matched what he had seen. But Tom also knew something else. Even good actions could have bad effects if not handled properly. The wool is blocking water flow, Tom said. It could change the land. It could harm plants and animals. Ben nodded again. I see that now. I came back today to start moving it. But it is too much for one person. At that moment, Tom's radio crackled. Tom answered quickly. I have made contact. The person here explains the source of the wool. It came from an emergency shearing of trapped sheep during winter. The action saved many animals, but the wool remains. Lena's voice came through. Are you safe? Yes, Tom said. The man is calm and cooperative. Ben stepped back and sat on a rock, clearly exhausted. Tom looked at the shed more carefully now. Inside, he saw piles of tools. Simple shears. Old ropes. Lamps powered by batteries. Water containers. Everything showed effort and care, not neglect. Tom felt respect, but he stayed professional. This situation still needs to be reported fully, Tom said to Ben. There will be questions. Ben nodded. I understand. I am ready to explain everything. They waited together while the sun climbed higher. The valley slowly warmed. Birds returned to the air. The wool shone white under the light. After some time, a small group arrived. 2 more rangers and a park officer named Mark. They listened to Ben's story and walked the land with Tom. Mark spoke quietly to Tom as they walked. "This is rare," he said. "Technically illegal, but the result saved wildlife on a huge scale." Tom nodded. "We need a solution that protects the land now." The group gathered near the stream. They watched water push through the wool slowly. Then Lena arrived with more people. She looked at the valley and shook her head in disbelief. "I have never seen anything like this." Tom spoke clearly. "We cannot leave it like this. But throwing it away would be waste." Lena thought for a moment. "Wool is valuable," she said. "Clean wool like this even more." Ben looked up. "I did not do this for money." Lena smiled slightly. "We know. But maybe this can become something good again." Ideas began to form. Wool could be used for insulation, for soil protection, for local crafts, for helping nearby communities. Tom felt something change in the air. The discovery that began as a shock was becoming a chance. The valley was not ruined. It was waiting. As the group planned the next steps, Tom looked across the white land and felt a strange sense of hope. What started as a hidden rescue might soon become one of the most important stories the park had ever known. And the most incredible part was still yet to come. The next morning the valley felt different. It was no longer silent and empty. Trucks stopped at the edge of the park road. People stood in small groups, looking out at the wide field of white wool with open mouths. Word had spread fast. Tom stood near the stream and spoke with Lena and Mark. They had spent most of the night planning. Phones kept ringing. Messages kept coming. What had started as a strange discovery was now something everyone wanted to understand and help with. Ben stood a little apart from the group. He looked tired but calm. He had not slept much. He watched people walk through the wool carefully, like they were stepping on something sacred. Lena spoke to the group. "We have a challenge and an opportunity. This wool cannot stay here, but it should not be wasted. We will remove it carefully and protect the land while doing so." Volunteers arrived from nearby towns. Some were farmers. Some were students. Some were people who worked with animals or land. Many had never been inside the park before. Tom guided small teams and showed them where the wool was blocking water and paths. He explained how to move it without harming plants underneath. People listened closely. They respected the place. Large cloth bags were brought in. People filled them slowly by hand. No heavy machines were allowed near the stream or trees. It was slow work, but steady. As the sun rose higher, the valley filled with quiet movement. People talked softly. Some laughed. Some worked in silence. The white land slowly showed patches of green again. Ben worked beside everyone else. He did not lead. He did not hide. He simply worked. When someone asked him why he did all this alone in winter, he answered honestly. The sheep had no one else. That answer stayed with many people. By midday, the stream flowed more freely. Water sparkled again. Birds gathered near the edges. Small plants lifted their heads from under the wool. Tom felt proud. He had seen many projects in the park, but this one felt different. It was not planned by rules alone. It was built from care. During a short break, Lena gathered the group. "There is more to this than cleanup," she said. "This wool can help people too. We have spoken with local builders and schools. Wool can be used for natural insulation. It can protect soil in gardens. It can be turned into warm items for families in need." A quiet excitement spread through the group. Mark added, "Nothing leaves this place without purpose. Everything will be tracked and used properly." Ben looked up at Tom. "I never imagined this." Tom smiled. Neither did the park. Over the next days, the work continued. News crews arrived but stayed at the edge. They filmed from far away and respected the rules. The story spread beyond the region. People called it the White Valley Rescue. More help arrived. A small processing station was set up outside the park. The wool was cleaned and sorted. Some was sent to local workshops. Some went to farms to protect crops from cold. Some was saved for future use. Children from nearby schools visited with teachers. Tom showed them how the land healed when care was taken. He showed them where the stream once slowed and how it flowed again. One child asked him, "Will the sheep come back?" Tom answered, "They never left. They are part of this place." That evening Tom walked alone through the valley. Most of the wool was gone now. The land looked like itself again. Not exactly the same, but stronger. He stopped near the ridge where he had first seen the white field. He remembered the shock and fear he felt that day. Now those feelings were replaced with something warm. Ben joined him quietly. "I thought I would be punished," Ben said. "I was ready for that." Tom shook his head. "Rules matter, but so does intent. And results matter too." Ben looked toward the hills. "The sheep are safer now. That is enough for me." Tom looked at Ben and saw someone who did not want praise. He saw someone who acted because he could not do otherwise. A few days later, the park office made a decision. They created a new emergency wildlife response plan. It was based partly on what Ben had done. Rangers would now have faster ways to act in extreme weather. Local people would be trained to help. Ben was invited to be part of it. He agreed, but only if the focus stayed on the animals. The valley became a symbol, not of damage, but of care. People spoke about it as proof that humans could fix problems when they chose to work together. On the final day of cleanup, Tom stood with Lena and watched the last bags leave. "Hard to believe this all started with wool," Lena said. Tom nodded. Sometimes the strangest signs lead to the best outcomes. As the trucks drove away, the wind moved across the grass. No white waves this time. Just green hills and clear water. But the story was not over yet. Because what the wool became, and how it changed lives beyond the park, would soon surprise everyone. A week after the last wool bags left the park, Tom thought life would return to normal. The valley looked green again. The stream ran clear. Visitors came back to the main trails, taking photos of trees and mountains like they always did. The strange white blanket felt like a dream that had passed. But the story did not fade. It grew. Tom noticed it in small ways at first. The park phone rang more than usual. People asked questions with serious voices. They did not ask about hiking routes. They asked about the wool. They asked about Ben. They asked what the park planned to do next. Lena began receiving messages from different groups. Builders wanted to learn how to use wool for insulation. Farmers wanted wool for soil protection. Teachers wanted lessons for their students. A local radio station wanted an interview. Tom was surprised by how fast the idea spread. A few days ago, the wool was a problem. Now it was becoming a resource. Mark created a simple system. Every bag of wool was weighed. Every bag was labeled. Nothing was wasted or lost. A small team outside the park cleaned and sorted the wool. They separated it into different grades. Soft wool for crafts and clothing. Stronger wool for building use. Rough wool for gardens. Ben visited the processing station every day. He helped without acting like a hero. He carried bags. He checked the tools. He spoke with workers and answered questions. When someone thanked him, he usually replied with a short sentence. The sheep needed help. One afternoon, Tom drove to the station to check progress. He expected to see the same steady work. Instead, he found something new. A large group of people stood near the entrance. Some held notebooks. Some held cameras. Some wore work boots and heavy jackets. They looked serious and excited at the same time. Lena waved Tom over. "You came at the right time," she said. "You should hear this. Tom looked confused. Hear what? Lena pointed to a woman named Maya who worked with local community projects. Maya was standing beside a simple table with samples of cleaned wool. Maya spoke to the group. We have an unusual supply of clean wool. Not a small amount. A supply that could support real projects. We can turn this into something that helps families before winter. Tom listened carefully. Maya continued. In nearby towns, there are old homes that lose heat through thin walls and broken windows. Families spend a lot on heating and still feel cold. Wool insulation is natural. It is safe. It lasts. It can help lower costs and make homes warmer. Tom felt something shift in his mind. He had heard of wool used in buildings, but he had never seen it used on a large scale. Maya looked at Lena. If the park agrees, we want to start a program. We will train workers. We will insulate homes. We will also create jobs for people who need steady work. Lena nodded. We agree, she said. But it must be done responsibly and legally. Maya smiled. It will be. After the meeting, Tom walked outside with Lena. This is getting bigger than I expected, he said. Lena looked thoughtful. When people see a real chance to help, they move fast. And the story of Ben saving the sheep gave this wool a meaning people can trust. Tom looked across the yard where bags were stacked neatly. The wool is almost like a bridge, he said. Between the park and the towns, Lena replied. Over the next month, the program began. Maya called it Warm Walls. Workers learned how to prepare wool panels. Builders tested them in small sheds first. They measured temperature changes. They checked for moisture. They improved the design. Everything was simple and practical. Tom visited one test site. Inside a small wooden shed, the air felt warm even on a cold day. The wool panels were packed inside the walls with care. The smell was clean, like dry grass. It did not feel strange at all. It felt right. Maya showed Tom a notebook filled with numbers and notes. We are saving energy, she said. We are lowering costs. And we are using a natural material that would have been wasted. Tom asked, how many homes can this supply help? Maya answered, honestly. If we manage it well, hundreds. Maybe more. Tom thought of the valley again, how endless it looked. Now that endlessness was turning into comfort for people. Soon, another project formed. A local group of artists and craft workers began making warm items. They made simple blankets. They made scarves. They made small mats. They sold some and donated others. The money supported more materials, tools, and training. Students joined too. Schools started a learning program about nature, balance, and resource use. Children learned where wool came from and how it could be used without harming animals or land. They learned that one act of care could create many other acts of care. Ben was invited to speak at a school. He did not like being in front of crowds, but he agreed because he wanted children to understand one thing. When he stood in front of the class, he kept it short. If you see something that needs help and you can help, do not ignore it, he said. But also remember that help should not create new problems. That is why teamwork matters. Tom watched the children listen. He saw their faces change. They were not bored. They were serious in a quiet way. After the talk, a small boy walked up to Ben. Did you feel scared alone in winter? Ben paused and answered carefully. Yes. But the sheep were more scared. So I kept going. That moment stayed with Tom for days. As winter approached, the first homes were insulated. Families reported that their rooms stayed warmer at night. They used less heating. They slept better. Some families wrote letters to the park, thanking the team. They did not thank the wool. They thanked the people behind it. Tom read one letter late one evening at the ranger station. It was from a mother named Sarah. My children used to wake up cold, she wrote. Now they wake up comfortable. I did not think something from the park could help us like this. Thank you for turning a strange discovery into something good. Tom sat back in his chair and felt quiet pride. The park was not only protecting nature. It was helping life beyond its borders. And still, something more was coming. Because as warm walls grew, a visitor arrived at the processing station with a proposal no one expected. A proposal that could change not only local towns, but the future of the park itself. Tom did not know it yet, but the most incredible part of the story was about to begin. By the time early winter arrived, the story of the White Valley had spread far beyond the nearby towns. People no longer called it a strange accident. They called it a lesson. They called it proof that a problem could become a gift when handled with care. Tom still worked his normal ranger shifts, but his days felt different now. He checked trails and watched the hills, yet he also helped with the new projects when he could. He visited the processing station once a week. He spoke with volunteers. He gave simple advice about protecting the land and keeping work areas clean. One cold morning Tom arrived at the station and saw a new car parked near the entrance. It was clean and modern, not like the muddy trucks that usually came and went. A man in a dark coat stood beside it, holding a folder. He looked like someone used to meetings and plans, not heavy outdoor work. Lena stood near the office door speaking with him. When Tom walked closer, Lena waved him over. "Tom, meet Daniel," she said. "Daniel works with an environmental building group. He drove here after hearing about the wool program." Daniel smiled politely and shook Tom's hand. "I wanted to see this with my own eyes," Daniel said. "Most stories online are exaggerated, but this one seems real." Tom nodded. "It is real. The wool came from an emergency rescue. Now it is being used to help homes and gardens." Daniel looked around at the stacked bags and the work tables. "This is not just a good story," he said. "This could become a model." Lena raised an eyebrow. "A model for what?" Daniel opened his folder and showed a few pages. Tom saw diagrams, numbers, and short notes. "For a circular system," Daniel said. "A system where local resources reduce waste and support both people and nature. Your wool program can be the center of something larger." Tom listened carefully. Daniel continued. "Your team already proved that wool can help insulate homes and protect soil. Now imagine using it to build small learning spaces, emergency shelters, and park research cabins that use less energy. Imagine training local workers and students every year. Imagine turning this into a long-term program that brings funding to the park and stable jobs to the region." Lena leaned closer, interested now. "And why would your group support that?" Daniel smiled. "Because it fits our mission, and because you have something rare. You have a real supply, a real story, and a real community already working together. Most places have to create interest. You already have it." Tom looked at Lena. He could see she was thinking deeply. Lena asked, "What are you proposing?" Daniel pointed to a page with a simple plan. "A partnership. We help with training, safety standards, and materials testing. We help you apply for grants and support. In return, the park becomes a pilot site for natural insulation projects and environmental education." Tom felt a quiet excitement. But he also felt caution. The park needed rules. The land needed protection. If the project grew too fast, it could harm what they were trying to protect. Tom spoke carefully. "How do we make sure this does not turn into a business that forgets the park?" Daniel nodded, as if he expected that question. "We set boundaries from day one. You control what happens inside the park. The town programs stay outside park limits. The partnership focuses on education and sustainability, not profit. We also create an oversight group that includes rangers, local leaders, and wildlife experts." Lena looked at Tom. "That sounds responsible," she said. "But it is a big step." Tom looked across the station again. He saw volunteers cleaning tools, sorting wool, and recording bag numbers. He saw Ben in the corner checking a small list and repairing a broken handle on a cart. Ben looked like the same quiet man as before, still focused on work, not attention. Tom realized something important. The reason this story stayed good was because it stayed honest. It began with care, and it remained guided by care. A week later, the first meeting took place at the town hall. Maya came. Mark came. Lena came. Tom came. Daniel came. Local builders came. Teachers came. Farmers came. The room was full. Maya spoke about warm walls and how many homes were helped already. She shared numbers and stories. She read a short note from a family who had saved money and slept better through cold nights. A builder explained the insulation tests. He described how they kept walls dry and safe. He talked about careful installation and how to avoid mistakes. A teacher explained the student program. Children were learning not only about nature but also about responsibility. They were learning that helping meant planning and teamwork. Then Ben stood up. He did not enjoy public speaking. He kept his eyes low at first. But when he spoke, his voice was steady. "I did not plan any of this," Ben said. "I only wanted to save the sheep. I made a mess in the valley, and I regret that part. But seeing all of you here makes me believe that even mistakes can become useful when people choose to fix them together." The room stayed quiet for a moment. Then people nodded. Some clapped softly. Tom watched Ben and felt respect again. Ben was not trying to look perfect. He was simply honest. After the meeting, the partnership was approved with clear limits. A small board was formed. Tom was asked to join as the ranger voice for land protection. He agreed because he knew the park needed a strong guardrail as the project grew. Over the next months, the results became visible. The park received grant money for stream protection and trail repair. New signs were installed to guide visitors away from fragile areas. A small research cabin was built using wool insulation and local wood. It used less energy and stayed warm without heavy heating. Workshops were held in town. People learned how to clean and prepare wool properly. They learned how to use it in gardens without blocking water flow. They learned how to store it safely. More homes were insulated. The program hired more workers. Families who had struggled found steady pay and training. The wool became more than a material. It became a symbol of connection. Then one day, Tom stood on the ridge in the North Valley again. Snow had returned, light and quiet. The stream still moved under the ice in some places, but it did not clog. The plants were safe. The land looked balanced. A small group of wild sheep appeared on a far slope. They moved slowly and calmly, grazing where the snow was thin. Tom watched them through his binoculars and felt a deep calm. He thought about the first morning he saw the valley covered in white. He had felt confusion and worry. Now he felt gratitude. Not because the wool had appeared, but because people had responded in the best way possible. Lena walked up beside him. She had visited the valley to check the winter conditions. "Hard to believe," Lena said quietly. Tom nodded. "It began as a shock. Now it is a system." Lena smiled. "And a story people will tell for a long time." As they stood there, Tom saw Ben walking along the lower trail with a small pack. Ben stopped and looked up at the ridge, as if he sensed them. He raised a hand in a simple greeting. Tom raised his hand back. No big words were needed. The wind moved gently across the valley. The snow was real now, not wool. The land felt clean and steady. The park had not only recovered. It had grown stronger. And Tom understood the true incredible part of what happened next.